Good morning and welcome to this week's recruitment discussion with Jump. Last week our session was on marketing and it sort of created lots of interest. There was lots of comments afterwards coming in, and I know that Robert got an awful lot of comments as well, which is really, really nice. Okay, but this week we're sort of moving and looking at how our recruitment services and ultimately what we sell to clients and how they should change. So we're going to look at old school versus new school and selling recruitment solutions that clients buy. As always, we're going to hit with a little bit of, stats about what's going on at the moment. So I started to delve into sort of sales stats and service stats, and HubSpot came up with some great stats. So top sellers spend on average 6 hours every week researching their prospects. 64% of sales professionals who cross-sell say email follow-ups are the most effective cross-sell strategy after your initial meeting. 60% of customers say that 4 times before they say no, four times before they say yes. 48% of salespeople never make a single follow-up attempt. 80% of salespeople require 5 follow-up calls, whereas 44% of salespeople give up after call 1. Personalizing email subject lines increases your open rate by 22%. 69% of buyers have accepted cold calls from new providers, and these are all 22-23 stats. 57% of C-suite buyers prefer contact via telephone. Organizations that don't cold call experience a 42% less growth than those that use cold calling as a tactic. Once you're talking to a decision maker, 6 is the ideal number of calls to actually win your sale. There are a load of stats on that sort of, which I'll post from HubSpot, but they were the main ones, but there's loads on there you should pick up with. 53% of customer loyalty is due to having a salesperson with the ability to provide unique sales insight or insight information about the market. Most customers, 76%, already have conversations with potential buyers over social media first. And the study found that 84% of C-suite executive employ social media to find information that can help them with their purchasing decisions. 85% of prospects and customers are dissatisfied with their on-phone experience, and 69% of buyers accept cold call from new providers, and 82% of buyers said they'd accept a meeting with a seller who reaches out to them over the phone. So on average, it takes 8 follow-up calls to make a prospect. 92% of all customer interaction happens on the phone. I'll repeat that because Paul will love that conversation. 92% of all customer interaction happens on the phone. 71% of sales stats said they spend too much time on the day doing data entry. High-performing businesses are 2 times more likely to have underpinned their services by automating it, creating a 2 times performance from those that don't. So it obviously says that our performance needs to change. Our services potentially need to change. Today, I've got the whole Jump team with us, which is great. Glad to see everybody sort of around and about today. So I'm going to jump in with the first question. So it's been a lot of change since sort of lockdown, and we've come out of lockdown. So what's the biggest change that you've seen in recruitment services over the last 12 months?
Well, I mean, amazing story. People actually picking up a phone, speaking to clients. God, what's going on? I mean, what's the world coming to? I think that what we've been able to do over the last 12 months, really emerging from lockdown, is go and see people again. I mean, certainly every client, I work with goes to see their customers now on a very regular basis. There's been a real upsurge in reigniting relationships and developing relationships. I think one of the issues that a lot of people had, obviously, during the lockdown and the period after, was the inability that we had to get in front of people and see them. But of course, our clients are now back in the offices most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time. That's enabled us to get out, start to see people again. And that leads to the sort of answer to your question, Howard, that I think what's really happening over the last 12 months as a result of these in-depth conversations and the reignition of relationships and development of relationships is movement towards retained and exclusive opportunities, away increasingly from contingent recruitment, which, let's be honest, is still the bulk of the recruitment that just about everybody is involved in, contingent, but an absolute push towards trying to get leverage a position with clients that you've got great relationships with, towards this towards this retained and exclusive positioning.
I completely agree. I think that's the only thing to say there is that's
This is being recorded, right, Howard?
Yeah,
She said,
it's being
didn't
recorded.
she? I completely agree.
Yeah, the fluffy HR girls agreeing with you. No, but I've seen so many more recruitment businesses having the confidence to go with, I value myself, I value my service, and therefore I'm only going to go with retained business. And that level of confidence, with that sustained period of recruitment being difficult, candidates being short, really being able to add value, and only being willing to work with clients that are good clients that want to work with us. Yeah, that's the biggest change I've seen, is that confidence.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think the fact that we are in a talent short era, however long that will last, I think the differentiator for me, or the key difference, is recruitment companies that have been able to articulate why they are the go-to company in a market where talent is short. And it's almost that bit of reminding our clients, actually, this is what we do, and this is why we matter. Here is some data, here's some information, here's what we've done before, here are the projects we've worked before, here's why we can get you the right people. And even if that's the same as everybody else, the fact that you are telling your clients that means that you can be a differentiator against your competition. And the fact that you could do that over the phone, as you have done, over Zoom, as you have done, but now you can do that face to face. I think that's been a real change in the last 12 months.
So I think the one thing that I've seen is that I think recruitment agents have realised that if we're honest, that there's not, our products and our services don't change that much, but how you package them up and how you bundle them and how you compartmentalize them has changed, and how we approach our clients and sell to our clients has absolutely changed. And, if we remember rightly, was it 18 months ago, we had the 3 clients on, and they said, if you came to us with an innovative service, and even they were saying, we don't think there's much new service, but how you package that service up, we're going to listen to you and listen to what happens on that. And I think when we start to look at our services, how many agencies do I speak to who haven't changed their services over the last 10, 15 years, etc. A long time since they've actually changed those services. But once you start to compartmentalize them and refresh those services and actually understand what you can sell, I think there's been a huge change in our value proposition that we're going out to clients with and what we deliver to our clients. Candidates is absolutely right. It's changed from a client market to a candidate market, and people have suddenly understood that clients only pay a bill if they have a candidate, and therefore can we expedite that service. So our view of developing a better candidate base has absolutely changed. So I think our services have changed significantly, but it's how we then promote those services to our clients, which sort of leads into the obvious question, is when pitching services to a client, how do you get a client to change from creating a reactive service process for us, because that's what most clients do, they recreate our recruitment process, they create that contingency for us, to taking a proactive service from us.
Yeah, and I think the guys have hit that on the head, because you've got to be in front of customers regularly, developing relationships. As Dave rightly said, it's about positioning your success with that organization over a prolonged period of time. This is what we always make that reference to: trusted advisor positioning, moving to a point where you already have their ear. They're very, very comfortable with what you do for them. So this is really about moving it on from that next level. And I think it's an important point to make here, that for most businesses, the chance to get into retained and exclusive positioning with clients has got to be based upon existing relationships, rather than going in cold. It's a much harder sell to go to an organization you've not worked with before, to pitch them to work with you exclusively and retain. It's not impossible, let me be clear about it, but the easier positioning is to work with people who already recognize that you do a great job for them. But this does come down to your point, Howard, about how do you do it? How do you move them, a customer, from really being offering you this contingent opportunity, the reactive method that we often have to deal with, as opposed to proactive. And that is about, I think, getting in front of the challenge, and that's talking to people about solutions. Dave's positioning around candidate short market is absolutely the positioning to take here at a time when it's so hard to find good quality people. You know, organizations need our expertise to identify candidates who are not in the market, are not looking for work right now, people that are on the market, who in a sense are people we can identify working for existing organizations, have got jobs at the moment. We need time to do that. We need time to be doing our market mapping and reaching out to people that are perhaps not considering changing jobs. To do that, we need exclusivity and retained opportunities. And so it's a process. We need to be talking to clients well in advance of opportunities coming up within their business about how we can assist them further. So it's solutions provision rather than just finding candidates for them.
I think if I take the question as how do we do this for clients, for me, this is an easy definition. A client is somebody who pays you something. A prospect is somebody who's going to be new. So for me, if it's about clients, I think the how bit is that as an owner, you're prepared to walk away if you can't meet if the way that they work isn't delivering value for your organization. And that's the how bit, is actually you've got to look at it and go, this is a talent short market. I've got 2 of these, you want them, but it's taking you 8 weeks to make a decision. I can't supply you. And you have that conversation, and we're prepared to walk away, because we always put it back on the client to change everything. Actually, sometimes the architect of that change is us as suppliers. And we say, look, you know, we just can't work with our pricing structure, with our margins, if it's going to take you on permanent 30 days to make a decision, and on contract 3 days. I need 24 hours on contract, and I need 2 weeks on permanent. And if you can work with us that way, we can carry on. But if you can't, we can't. And that's okay. But as an owner, I think we've got to be in a position where we know that we can do that. Again, I stress that's with existing clients as opposed to prospects who don't know us.
I think it's interesting when we start to sort of boil this one down, is that, you know, when I do training for consultants, one of the things we talk about is that clients don't actually know what they want. And what we tend to find is when clients plan their recruitment, there's one person missing from that room, and that's generally a recruiter. And so they come back to us with a process that they think is the best process, which is more of a reactive process, a contingent process, and they force that process on us, thinking that that's the best process, because clients don't really know what they want or how to get that. And this flip side of that is when we sell our services, usually in a usually poor way, that we sell all our services together and then put a price on the end of our services. And what the client doesn't see then is what's actually extra and worth buying. So they don't understand what's extra. They don't understand what's actually there. So if we broke our services down into contingency, exclusivity, retained, talent advisory, statement of works, RPO, and the list goes on the things that you can sort of break that down and learn to sell to the client. And when we sell to the client before we negotiate a price, actually find out what the client wants from our service, then I think we can start to be more proactive, because then we can start to understand their buying needs, their buying patterns. And that's the thing we don't understand, is their buying patterns, because we wait for the client, and everyone says, no, we proactively go out and call the clients. No, we wait for the client to tell us they need a recruitment now, they need a placement now. But that recruitment has probably been planned 6, 12, 18 months ago, because we always think that everything's a distressed purchase when it's not. They're planning their recruitment years in advance. As we plan recruitment agencies, you plan how many people you're going to bring in that year. Okay, took 20% as an attrition rate on top of that, then you start to think that's what we're looking at. So when we start to think about how we sell our services, the fact that we are reactive because we allow them to come and say, I need a candidate now, and helping them plan so we can be proactive in the first place. And that's about taking a better tailored service to them, and they understand what that service needs. It's not an extra. This is a more improved and better service. And I think that's the bit that we've got to start to really get our heads into, to really start to sell a better service level to our clients. And that will create a more proactive service rather than the reactive service that we have at the moment. So if we look at clients, do we see a shift in clients moving away from contingency, pre-recruitment, to a more retained and talent advisory? Now, Heather, you were saying at the beginning that you've started to see a little bit of that already. Talk to me about that. Do you start to see that shift from clients just looking at contingency and moving to more retained talent advisory or paid type services?
I think the ones that are making that shift, Howard, are the clients that are more sophisticated buyers. So it's not just about us as recruiters being more sophisticated about what we sell, but it's about, and again, I hate to do this, Paul, but I'm going to agree with you again.
Oh, no.
But it's about building the relationship with the client in the first place. What responsibility are we taking for creating sophisticated clients? So do we help them understand the difference between working with a recruiter on a contingency basis and working in a talent advisory service? So, and so for me, I think it's about helping our clients to become sophisticated purchasers, and some of them are, and I'm really seeing the ongoing struggle to find talent turning more and more clients into sophisticated purchasers, because they are seeing that what they've always done in the past. I mean, this is only a small section of your clients, but they're the ones we want to work with, is that they're seeing that just doing what they've always done isn't working anymore, and they can't just keep fishing it out to 10 recruiters and expecting them all to fight for the business. That they've got to develop deeper, stronger relationships with their talent acquisition partners, rather than seeing us as a distress purchase, as a necessary evil, that they just talk to us when it's a problem, but actually engaging with us earlier, and being part of the platinum, that client perspective. Some of them are getting there on their own, and some of them are getting there because we as an industry are helping them to understand the real value that we add.
I'm going to say, just going to jump in there, Dave. Can I just jump in there? Because I think you're absolutely right, Heather. And I think that goes back to what I was saying on the last question. But this goes to the other side of the coin, is that once we sign a deal with a client, like say we sign a deal today with a client, and we've got a 12-month agreement with them, every time they send a job to us, we just pitch on that same agreement, rather than saying, well, this job could be contingency, this job actually should be retained, this job should be this, and actually giving the job. So every time we get a job from a client, we should be repitching our services and re-educating our clients on what we do. And every time we visit our client, we should be re-educating our clients on our service levels and what each individual requirement needs. Because some requirements, we know we've got candidates, and so that's easy to fill. Some requirements we know are really hard to fill. And that's that education piece to clients, and taking them from that reactive to a proactive marketplace. Because I say, they don't trust us. They see us as a suspect, and therefore treat us as a suspect, and we're never allowed in that room when they're planning their recruitment. And I think once you get in that room, then you can sell more proactive services. So I think you're right, Heather. The smart clients are seeing that and changing that. The old clients need educating.
And the smart agencies have changed the way they reward their smart consultants. Because if you reward your consultants the same way today as you did 2 years ago, then they're going to be thinking short term, make the deal, move on to the next one. Short term, make the deal, move on to the next one, which for some clients and for some agencies is right. But if we're saying that we want to take a smarter approach and build a longer term relationship with our clients, but we are only going to reward our salespeople in short term hits, then that disconnect is going to make the client think, actually, they only care about today. They don't really care about tomorrow. They don't reward their salespeople who intelligently give market information, who market data, who will invite the client to come to a seminar to talk about what's going on in the market. And that whole process may take 2 months, but in 2 or 3 months, you can intelligently pitch a piece of retained work because you are acting as the market go-to agency. Whereas if you're just consultants at the desk, and there's nothing wrong with consultants at the desk, but if all you're doing is rewarding on today, rewarding on tomorrow, then it becomes more difficult to build a long-term relationship.
Yeah, and
because you get what you measure and reward, right?
exactly. People, you exactly that. Behavior is often generated through the rules and regulations of your bonus plans. But I mean, to pick up the point that you raised, Howard, do you see a shift in clients moving away from contingency, etc.? I think the answer is yes and no. I think they're not, in general terms, clients themselves will not be asking us for that kind of retained exclusive service. It's not going to come, generally speaking, from the customers, from the clients. It has to come from us. And this is back to the point that I would make here, which is about us, and you alluded to this, Howard, training and coaching our people so they have the confidence to approach clients with the ideas around how they can provide better quality service going forward, how we can be much more proactive going forward. I think often the challenges that recruitment businesses have is not necessarily aligned to their customers' views, but the changing the mindsets of the people that work within the business. How do you get your own people to start approaching clients with either ideas, with innovative thoughts and processes that can make life easier for clients? I think the blockages often occur within the business. And that's not the fault of our consultants. That's our fault for not coaching and training them adequately and giving them the confidence to start to speak to clients about other methods of assisting them. So, this is again rooted perhaps in the bonus plans. It's a great point. But I think it starts with us getting into, if you like, the psyche of our own people who are in many instances hardwired to provide contingent services.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me because my system seems to have sort of slowed down at the moment. Can you all hear me still?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I knew that would come from Mr. Jacobs. Unfortunately, yes. And I think it's right that we've got to look at our services and when we start to think about where we're trying to get to, we've got to be really proactive in taking it to the client rather than letting the client just come to us. And I think that's the big difference where I've seen really recruitment agencies, they're out visiting their clients, they're out speaking to their clients more, but they're now understanding what their clients' needs are rather than just looking for the opportunity. They're looking for the long-term opportunity. So if we look at that move from contingency to more exclusive to more retained to talent advisory, how do you create a service and a sale that a client is willing to engage at a deeper level than they currently are? Because I think that's the bit that you started to allude to, Heather, that clients have to.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, we've lost him.
We've lost him.
Okay.
We lost you, Howard.
We did lose you there briefly, Howard, but I think you're back.
Okay, so where did you lose me?
We lost the question.
You lost the question. It's all right. Paul will answer it anyway. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't listen to the questions.
Whatever the question was, Paul, over to you.
Yeah, I don't listen to the questions.
Yeah, never listen to the question. Okay, so how do we create a sale or a service that a client is willing to engage deeper level than they currently are? Because at the moment, that's why we sell contingents, because they don't engage us at a deeper level.
Well, I think Dave's kind of answered this, and I'm going to let Dave speak in a second, but I think it's about making sure that we're ahead of the game. It's not just waiting for them to phone us with a vacancy. It's about understanding what their manpower plans are for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months in advance, so that we're having those deeper conversations, coming up with ideas and solutions in advance of their needs rather than waiting for the point at which they pick up the phone or send us an email. And I think that, again, is right back to the beginning of this conversation. And the questions that everybody listening to this needs to be thinking about is, how often are we in front of our clients? Now, anyone that's worked with me will know, and I would say it like a mantra, we should never be more than 12 to 13 weeks away from the next meeting with our clients. And I'm talking every client. There are some clients we need to see every month, and even some we see every week. Any further than a 13-week period puts you completely out of touch with what's going on in their business. Now you could argue, well, we can have video calls, and I'll buy that, although I'd much prefer face-to-face meetings. But I think any length of time beyond 3 months where you're failing to sit down to have a review meeting with your client is a failure, and it's not going to give you the opportunity to put yourself in pole position to start talking about solutions with your clients.
There you go.
There you go, Dave. Did you want to jump in there?
We're silenced by you, Paul.
Well,
Yeah,
not for the
think-
first time.
I think just as a side point to this, and this is for me is very important, look at where your business makes its money.
Yeah.
Because for some businesses, they make their money on the individual placements, and lots of them. And they're not set up to be solutions providers, nor do they want to be solutions providers. And frankly, some of them wouldn't be very good at being solutions providers. But actually, they are very good at placing loyal or good candidates to their clients. And actually, you don't have to change your business model if that sustains you, if your clients are happy with that service, and if they want that service. I mean, I've also seen clients try to change their entire business model into something that they think their client wants. The only thing is they forgot to ask their client whether that's what they wanted. And they looked at it and think, hold on, last year we were making X amount of money with that company, and now we're making a lot less. Whereas because we tried to package everything up. You don't have to change. You just need to know where you want to make your money and how you make your money. And if that is sustainable and your clients enjoy that service and your relationship with your clients is good enough to sustain that service, then carry on. Because that's the lifeblood of our business. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I think that comment there, Dave, if you can sustain that service is the comment, because I think you're absolutely right. You look at your core business and build on those relationships, but do you know how deep those relationships are with your clients? Do you know what those relationships look like? And that's the bit that we're not selling. I've come across lots of people who are happy to sit on a very poorly qualified contract with a client, or if they have a contract at all with them, so it's just basically a contract of goodwill, and they're selling the same service they sold 4 or 5 years ago, but they're now getting infiltrated because lots of other agencies are going and selling better services or different services or more upgraded services to them, but they're living off that past. And it's the same when those people move. I have another client where, one of their, virtually all of the people that they were buying from them have all retired and moved on. And they've now got a new influx of people. And because they've never upsold that service and never done something, they're starting to lose those clients because of that. And I think we shouldn't be sat on our laurels. We should be still driving a deeper relationship with our clients. And to do that, you've got to have, improve your services constantly, I think, to your clients. Otherwise, you're just standing still. And if you're standing still, as we know in our game, you're going backwards to a fair degree. So I think you're right in what you're saying, Dave, but I think we still have to get in and improve our services and prove our value to them. Otherwise, other people will come and take that away from you.
Yeah. And forgive me, Had, I can't remember, it was a few weeks ago I said this on one of these webinars. When I was working in that corporate sort of environment at Spring, I had a new boss that came in who refused to allow us to put a client name down as who we were dealing with. It had to be the individual at the client. We were never allowed to put, we're dealing with Ford. We were only allowed to put who the people we were dealing with at Ford. And suddenly, we weren't dealing with Ford. We were dealing with about 5 people that we really enjoyed a good relationship with. Yeah. The only difference was 35 other people bought services and we weren't aware. But on the Excel spreadsheet that we used to use in those days, it used to have Ford. Or we'd put it up to Easy Access or Bond or whatever, and it would say Ford. Yeah. And I think for our consultants, we need to know the names of the people they're dealing with, the type of relationships they have, the type of services they sell, and then the type of services those individuals at that client site buy.
Yeah, wise move. Very good idea.
So if we then look at that, and we look at old school recruitment and then cast forward to new school, what's happening? What's the difference in the services that we are providing now, or should be providing now, or could be providing now, to what services are we providing, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, depending on how long your business has been running?
I think Heather's right. I think, it's a more sophisticated market now. And, adopting some of the old methods will put you out of step with certain organizations. One, you have to keep in mind something very important here, that if you as a recruitment business owner or a recruitment business are not consistently innovating, consistently speaking to your clients about their requirements, their changing needs, their changing environments, their changing markets, and working closely with them, very close collaboration, you run the real risk that one or two of your competitors are doing exactly that. And if they are doing that, no question, they are trying to edge you off of that client. So, doing nothing is a decision. It's a decision that's a very dangerous decision. It means that you're opening the door to allow some of your more forward-thinking competitors to steal the march on you. You have no choice. You have to consistently speak to your clients to understand what is going on in their worlds. And you may assume you know what's going on, but we all know what assuming means. So it's really important to be in front of people. So the old school recruitment methodology of waiting for clients to contact you, give you vacancies, give you opportunities we know that's still prevalent, but you have to move forward. You have to be more proactive, to be closer, to offer consultative services. And I think that, as I said, the danger is if you're not doing that, your people are not doing that, they're not coached and trained to do that, they haven't got the confidence to do that, you are definitely running a high risk that somebody else is going to do it and steal your thunder.
I'm going to say slightly controversially, I believe that old school recruitment done right wins every time. Build relationships, know your clients, know about them, about what drives them, about why it matters to them that the people you supply will help them in their career. I think if we really get to know our clients well, which I guess I'm calling old school, Paul, it may not be old school, but the stuff that I was told, I believe that wins every time. Tech will help.
Yeah, I was just about to
tech
say,
makes a
let's
difference.
not forget tech
will
right?
help.
Yeah,
but tech won't help if you haven't got a relationship.
Yep.
People need help to understand what new tech does for them, and the help comes from having a relationship. So for me, if old school means having a really good relationship, then old school wins every time.
Fair point.
Heather?
Yeah, I don't think we should miss the tech point, actually, because well, sometimes we can be a bit self-congratulatory, can't we, in this industry, and go, we're getting this right, look how successful we are. And then you look on LinkedIn and you see candidates talking about how awful it still is dealing with recruiters, right? And it's hideous, and nobody ever gets back to me, and I get no response. And I've got some people I know personally who've had experience as candidates themselves recently dealing with the recruiters, and there's still a lot of rubbish. There's still a lot of really poor candidate experience here, and we can talk for a million years about whose fault that is. Really good, careful use of tech can help solve some of that, can help improve communications, which is primarily what the issue is not good enough communication for candidates. So good use of tech is a really important way for us to move forward. But I completely agree with what Dave is saying. Fundamentally, recruitment hasn't changed, right? It's finding great people, great jobs with great clients. And we have to understand deeply our candidates, our clients, our relationships, our role. And good recruitment hasn't really changed, but some of the tools that are available to help us do that well have. And we absolutely should be embracing those tools.
So I think there has to be that view of the blended approach, and we're going to talk about, a blended approach. But if you think about what was happening on last week's webinar and think about some of the stats that we've talked about today, old school was about creating a relationship, and old school means you had to get on the phone because you had no other way of contacting your client other than going to meet them face to face. 92% of all customers' interaction happens on the phone. However, if you then start to think about email campaigns, and you think 85% of your prospects are dissatisfied with your telephone experience. That's because we're not teaching people to really use that. But 84% of C-suite people use social media to find information about the person that is calling them, talking to them before they make a decision. So there has to be this blended approach of old school and new school. And that's what Heather's talking about, whether it's technology, AI, etc. But there has to be this blended approach of the pair of them in order to really capture the market. And I think there's too many recruitment agencies just doing old school, and whether they're doing it well or not is a different story. Too many agencies doing pure new school, just emailing, and there's the bit in the middle that they're both missing, that there has to be a blended approach of both to make it work. And I think that Dave's absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with old school. In fact, I think the more touchy you are with your clients, the better you are. But that touchy is not just a verbal conversation or face-to-face meeting. It's email, text, social media, touching in lots of different ways. And I think we talked about, there's the old book, isn't it, 7 No's to a Yes. They're now talking about 21 touch points to a yes, where that's social media, verbal, etc., before you start to make a sale. So we've got to start to think that there has to be an approach. So if we look at that, why is it important then to create a blended approach for both old school and new school? If we're saying that both are good, why is it important then to create a blended approach?
It just depends on your market, absolutely, doesn't it? It depends on your client and the level of sophistication of your client and the person that you're speaking to. I was on site with a firm that do tarmacking, right? And while I was there in the office, the recruiters were on the phone to them trying to place operatives to do tarmacking in the next gangs that they were putting out. And nobody in that office looks at social media. They don't, so old school works really well for them. And the recruiters were on the phone with their candidates, and it was very old school recruitment, and it worked. But then you have very, very sophisticated clients who are absolutely going to be looking on LinkedIn to see who it is on the phone to them, and to understand who they are while they have that conversation. And I think we have a blended approach because we have a real mix of clients and a real mix of candidates. And that's such a diverse industry. We're so diverse.
Yeah.
And that's such an interesting conversation there, Heather, because my daughter's boyfriend is a roofer. And he spends all his time on social media.
Yeah.
And he's a roofer. And most of his mates, because he works for a big company, building housing estates, etc., most of his mates are road people, civil engineers, etc. But actually the blue collar side of that, and they're all on social media. They're all talking about social media. So although they might not be using social media from a recruitment point of view, but to drive candidate attraction and attention, they're all on social media.
Absolutely.
They're a massive user of social media. And I think that's the bit that we're missing out on, is that you're using that old school approach and you're saying there's nothing wrong with that and what they're doing. Then not one of them would do using social media, but are they missing a massive opportunity to do candidate attraction, because that's where most of their candidates are hanging out on social media 24/7.
Well, I think that you've reached a point where I was also going to bring in, which is we've spent the webinar talking about clients. And one of the major reasons why people use recruitment businesses is for speed, urgency. And secondly, attached to that point is our ability to find good quality candidates. So, when we're looking about old versus new school, the thing that absolutely I think comes into the opportunity under new school is using technology to consistently keep in contact and engage with candidates. Because if you are failing to do that as a recruitment business, you've got a real problem on your hands. So, when we look at old school, we talk about how we manage to keep in touch with candidates. It's pretty, I would say some recruitment businesses managed it reasonably well, but an awful lot have found literally tens of thousands of candidates disappearing into the black hole known as the CRM, never to be spoken to again. And the opportunity now that we have with technology gives us the chance to consistently engage with candidates, new school, if you like, using AI, using all forms of methodology through social media and so forth. And I think that that's where the new school and blended opportunity comes in and comes into play. Our ability to consistently engage with people who have reached out to us for assistance at some stage or another, enabling us to keep those people close to our business so that when we have opportunities for them, we're able to place them in new roles and serve our clients to a greater degree than we have in the past. And to me, that's a very important element of this whole new school issue, using technology to keep us close to the people that have asked us for assistance.
And I spend quite a bit of time in the tech sector with tech recruitment agencies. Most of their candidates don't want anybody to call them. They want to use tech to engage with the agencies, things like GitHub and Stack Overflow and all of those sort of things, because the candidates are working. They don't even answer their phone. They have no intention of ever answering their phone. They use their phone to do their work and to do their tech. And on that basis, you have to engage with them in that way. Yep. So things like WhatsApp and Insta and those sort of messaging services, actually, you can use those really proficiently. So when you said at the beginning, Had, about about using your phone, I think, or calls, you're thinking of voice calls, but actually WhatsApp calls and WhatsApp messages are just as important and as powerful. You can have WhatsApp groups for clients where each 2 or 3 weeks you're sending them something on WhatsApp, which is a piece of information about some market intelligence. You can have 10 or 12 people in that group. If you do that 3 or 4 times, 5 times a year, say, pick a number, that's another way of engaging. It isn't that you've picked up the phone to them, but you've just built a closer relationship using tech that's available to everybody.
Which I don't disagree with, except I think the core interaction that happens that drives the sale, both from a client side and from a candidate side, happens verbally, either over the phone or face to face. Yes, I work with tech companies that are using all those sort of products that you're talking about there, Dave, and interacting that in that way. But when it comes to interview, etc., it's all a verbal communication. Yeah, so yeah. It's old school, new school driving in together, and how we're driving those things together. But it's using them together that helps create that opportunity, and that blended approach then is really important. And I think it was, we've got Neil Carberry on the webinar in 2 weeks' time. I think it was Neil Carberry that said the last expo that the biggest place to find candidates is Facebook. It's the biggest job board in the country. And yet, we're missing out because most people don't even think about looking on Facebook. And yet, it is still the biggest place. And I looked at all the stats that I was looking at today. Facebook, LinkedIn were the biggest places. Then it started to drop to TikTok, Insta, etc. But they are still the biggest place to find candidates and interact with them. But you need a new school approach to do that. And then you need the old school approach to actually then tie them in. So if we move on to the last question then, which is, if we look down the tracks, what do you see coming that recruiters simply cannot ignore when it comes to providing better recruitment solutions to clients?
And I think we've kind of talked about that throughout this conversation, which is, I think it comes down to deeper consultative services. I mean, the blended approach, absolutely. But I'm going to keep on saying what I've been saying, which is we need to be close to our clients. And we talked about candidates, but we need to be close to our clients, understanding what their needs are. It is, as Heather said, it's becoming more sophisticated. Dave mentioned providing data, providing information to candidates. That's true for clients as well. We will find our clients great candidates. That, I hope, is a given. But I think they look to us now, and increasingly so, for much more than simply finding candidates. I think they want advice, they want guidance, they need steering in certain directions at a time when it's very difficult for them to find the quality of candidates they seek, and it's a challenge to keep the good people in their businesses. And I think they need our support and guidance around those things. It's one of the reasons that I believe people stick around in recruitment in our own businesses, is that after a while, the fulfillment that our people gain isn't just based upon making placements. It's about their interactions and relationships with clients, to the extent that they're providing solutions that clients really appreciate, and that they themselves, our people, gain real fulfillment out of providing. And that goes, if you like, above and beyond finding candidates. Of course, ultimately, that's how we make our money. But developing those kind of consultative relationships is, I think, what clients are expecting from us as we go further forward.
And I think that's the solution to one of the problems I would see coming down the track. And that's for some sectors of our industry, not for all of it, but for some, it's the increasing internationalization of the employment market.
Yes.
So I think there's a massive move towards being able to work anywhere, to be able to attract candidates from anywhere, and also to provide recruitment services from anywhere. So we're kind of historically the UK centric businesses based in the UK, and that's really changing. But I think that increasing in internationalization, I've dealt with recruitment businesses as a customer in a different role, where we are it's a long way into the relationship before you realize that recruitment business isn't based in the UK, has nobody in this country, and yet is providing candidates and services in this country because of where they're based. They're much lower cost. So there's a real internationalizing element, I think, that we need to be aware of in some sectors that's coming down the track. And the solution is what Paul says. It's about building relationships with clients and being close to them, so that it's not all about the money.
Yeah, and for me to add to those 2 points, what's coming down the track is a different reward structure, which equates to a different behaviour structure, which equates to building a different relationship. And then if we reward people in the same way we've always rewarded them, and they've been successful, they'll carry on. But if we want them to change and we want them to build intelligent long-term relationships that are global, international, working from home, all of that sort of stuff, then we're probably going to have to pay them in a different way.
So I think I don't disagree with any of that. And I think the realization that candidate is king at the moment, but candidate should always be king. And I think your comment there, Paul, about the CRM, I think if more recruitment agencies actually look to harvest their data, if you took a CRM, a basic CRM with, say, 5,000 candidates on, 20% of those candidates at any one time are looking for a job. Do you know the 20%? Do you know that 1,000 that are looking for a job right now? Because if you do, you don't have to use a job board. You can go straight into those 1,000 and place those 1,000. Out of those 1,000, how many are you placing a month? How many, and that's the conversations that I'm having with clients, and they're suddenly realizing that their ability to harvest that data that they already have is really, really poor. And they're now starting to change that so they can start to be able to provide candidates with clients with candidates when the client walks into their shop front and says, I need a candidate, rather than sit there for a day or two, a week or two, 2 weeks, and let me go away and find a candidate. They're now providing those candidates to the client in a little bit quicker fashion. And I think John Russell's put it right in his opinion. Technology supports old school recruitment, enables them to improve relationships, helps recruiters be better, more proactive, and accelerates their hiring process and improves their candidate and client experience. And I think it's about that attraction and retention of your candidates and clients. And that's what we forget in recruitment. We never attract and retain our candidates. We put them on our database and let them rot, rather than actually working with them and developing them. So I think our services, there's not a lot to change within our services. There's a lot to incorporate from old school and new school and getting it right, but it's being more precise and more exacting with the services that we have, so the clients understand what is actually beneficial to them, not just this, one size fits all recruitment shoe that we tend to put out.
Just to add to that quickly before we finish, Howard, I mean, we need to coach our people to represent candidates in the market, place candidates in roles, not just focus on filling vacancies. And that is something that is absolutely fundamental, particularly in this market.
Brilliant. Well, as always, it's always an interesting conversation. I like the fact today we've had a little bit of agreement, a lot of disagreement, a little bit of different ideas, etc. It's always good. Next week, I think we're going to have even more challenging conversation, because next week we're going to challenge. It's all right having all of these recruitment processes put into place, whether they're old school or new school, but have you got the talent to actually work with that? So next week we're going to talk about your talented recruiters, but are you recruiting talent for your business? And we've all had this problem about there's a candidate shortage, etc. So I think we're going to hit the nail on the head next week very heavily about, are you recruiting talent? And then the week after, we're having Neil Carberry on for our webinar talking about the state of the recruitment market in 2023, which will be a really interesting conversation, I think. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. All you guys from Jump and ladies from Jump, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you guys next week as well.
See you, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.